Welcome to Hornbill TV, your English news bulletin. I'm Lashini Chastey. The Assembly elections 2022 is ready to take its course in the 5 poll-bound states: Manipur, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab and Goa. Ahead of the elections, various speculations are made about poll alliances and also resignations of individuals from their parties. Now, Manipur State Assembly elections will be held in 2 phases in the state on February 27 and March 3rd. Earlier in the month of January 4th, various BJP leaders like party spokesperson Sambit Patra, BJP President JP Nadda and Prime Minister Narendra Modi has visited Manipur. The PM during his visit has also inaugurated and laid foundation stones of various developmental projects. To know more about the prospects of BJP and where it stands right now for the upcoming assembly elections, we have my colleagues Esther and Akivito joining us with more on this. Yes, getting straight to the discussion. Esther, what is at stake for this year's Manipur, assembly elections, and what are the parties that are contesting for the elections? Esther?
Yes, hi Lashini.
Yes. Starting with you, what is at stake for this Manipur assembly elections and what are the political parties that are contesting?
Well, this time, as last time in 2017, 60 assembly seats are there, and also it is 40 from the valley and 20 from the hills. And 4 major parties will be actually in the limelight for this year's elections. It's the BJP and the Congress, 2 really big major parties, as well as regional, which is
major
NPF.
parties, as well as regional, which is NPF and NPP.
Okay, coming back to Akivito. Akivito, in 2017, the last election, we have seen various alliances like the BJP and NPP and also the NPF. So this year, has there been any, official, statements about various political party forming alliances?
Thanks, Lashini, for having me. So, as you just said, in 2017, it was the Manipur BJP party that had formed an alliance with the NPP and the NPF and other parties, and that is how they came into the power. BJP had won 21 seats and NPF and NPP had won 8 seats, and then there was an LJP candidate and also an independent candidate, which is how they were able to form the government. Well, this time around there has been no official pre-poll alliance being announced by any political party, and what is in the fray for this time's election is that the BJP, who is in alliance with the NPP party, this time will be contesting against the NPP in all 60 seats, where Konrad Sangma has made it very clear that NPP would like to form the party and will be forming the party in this year's Manipur Assembly elections. So it's going to be a very tight call, as we know that wherever the BJP is putting up their candidates, we've got the NPP too, who have also put in their own candidates, and they will be fighting against each other in this year's election. So it's maybe the pre-poll alliance do not exist, but maybe after the election, which will be the post-poll alliance, maybe that is very much on the cards, because even last year it was a hung house, and due to an alliance being formed, that is how the BJP party were able to form the government at the state. So this time around, it's going to be interesting to see if BJP will stick to its old beliefs and rather would it want to go with an alliance with other parties.
Yes, Esther, getting back to you, in the last election 2017, there were like 27 lakh voters, and then since then, do you think that the voters have increased?
Well, according to 2019, there are more than 19,39,000 voters. Now, considering that we have all these voters in hand right now, the hills also have a large major voters from Naga inhabited areas. So now for the BJP to come back and win this again would be also to concentrate on a lot of voters in the hills. So yes, that way is with NPF and NPP together, and if they decide to again form with the BJP, then yes, definitely there's a huge chance for BJP to also win with these many voters.
Akivito, so what do you think is the biggest challenge for BJP party for this assembly elections?
Well, Lashni, coming to think about the party alliances, there have been many leaders in the past few months that have shifted their allegiance with their original parties and have shifted to the BJP. Well, we've got several prominent leaders from various constituencies joining the BJP in the last moment, and that, I think, the biggest challenge the BJP will actually be facing is about who the right candidates would be for one particular constituency. Well, there are 60 seats, and BJP has its old stalwarts who are already there, and they will also be there. But then with the coming in of new leaders from various parties like the NPP and the Congress and the NPF, the BJP leaders, especially at the center level, will have a tough time giving the tickets to the right candidates. Well, we shouldn't forget that many of those leaders that have joined the BJP too, they have their stronghold in their own particular constituencies, and that is how they have been elected as a member of the Legislative Assembly. Well, now it is now going to be a big challenge for the BJP to actually give the tickets, whether they would want to give the tickets to those people that have come from the other parties, or would they rather stick to their own partymen and give them tickets. So I think that is going to be one major headache for the BJP this time around.
Okay, Akivito, we have also seen, in the past days or in fact weeks that many people are leaving their parties and joining the BJP party. So why do you think this is happening?
Alright, coming to think about it, we've got some major faces that have actually left the original parties. If you look at, take the example of the reigning sports minister, Letpao Hawkip, who was a party member of the National People's Party, which is Konrad Sangma's party. He quit the NPP and he has joined forces with the BJP. Well, amongst the other leaders are also Congress spokesperson, and he was the Congress vice president. Chaltonlian Amo, who has also left the Congress and has now joined the BJP. Among them are some Congress leaders too, Joy Kumar, and you've got Yamthang Hawkip too, who have left. Now, all these people that have left their original parties and going to the BJP have stated that after the BJP has come to power, they have seen so many developments and they also want to be part of that development plan. So I think that is one of the main reasons as to why the members are actually shifting allegiance from their old parties and moving on to the BJP. And also another thing that could also be one factor as to why they are leaving their old parties is it's the fact of the double engine government. Well, in the center we've got the BJP who's holding a majority in the Lok Sabha, and now too in Manipur we've got the BJP in power. So they have this kind of like an ideology where they think like if the party is at the center and that same party is at the state level, then we can see more progress, you can see more works happening. So I think that is one of the facets as to why those party leaders are actually shifting their allegiance to the BJP.
Yes, getting back to you, Esther, what was the secret formula for CM Biren Singh to win the last election? Do you think this time again they will come back winning this election again?
Well, apart from the obvious tactic that was used last elections with the collision of NPF and NPP together with the BJP, I mean, the NPF were kingmakers in this last election, but this time also, the last election as formula, as you are saying, would be, like I said earlier also, he had a lot of reach in the hill areas especially, which is 20 constituencies, and also considering that last year there was a huge margin between the Congress and the BJP with the percentage of votes and then the gain percentage, it was a very huge margin that they won from. And this year as well, if he plays the right cards, if Mr. N. Biren Singh plays the right cards, the CM of Manipur, then yes, definitely. And not only that, another secret formula would be that this year as well, the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, had also visited, and the BJP National President had visited Manipur for other various inauguration of development projects. So these are basically campaigns that he is also doing to probably get and garner a lot of votes this time. So probably that was his secret formula. And not to forget that he is also a very people's person, the Chief Minister of the BJP. He's also a very people's person considering his background as a journalist as well. Yes, back to you, Lishini.
Yes, Akivito, we have, witnessed a lot of pre-poll violence, and then with all these election, environment that is hyping up, and people, it's just 1 month away that the elections are. And then we have also heard about report like pre-poll violence. So last week also we have heard one. So can you give a highlight about the pre-poll violence that has been happening in the state Manipur?
All right. So, Lishni, when Hornbill TV was able to connect with our Manipur correspondent the last time around, Mubashir, who is our Manipur correspondent, had stated clearly the fact that this time in Manipur, the pre-poll violence was actually getting out of hand. Well, the pre-poll violence has been happening from the month of November, if I'm to be corrected. So, what had happened then was it was alleged that some BJP workers had fired upon the Congress youth, and that is when all the front came. Normally from Manipur, we do hear about pre-poll violence in the hills, but this time around, most of the violence, pre-poll violence, is happening in the Valley district. So that is where it's a big bone of contention. Well, if you look just about last week, in the Wangoi constituency, a Havaldar and a BJP worker was shot dead near the Manchu Cinema Hall. And then if you look back just a few days ahead, the constituency intending candidate of the Wangoi constituency, in his house, a grenade was hurled at his house, which damaged some of his property, but God forbid, nothing had happened to the intending candidate. Well, if you go rewind the year, then we see that there have been a lot of instances of pre-poll violence in the state of Manipur. Well, this is going to be very interesting because a lot of them are Congress supporters. Well, when the Wangoi incident had happened, BJP Chief Minister, or rather the Chief Minister of Manipur and a BJP candidate, M. Biren Singh, had said that this was a target on the BJP party and that the culprits who were involved in that shooting incident would not be spared and that strict action would be taken against them. But just the next day, Congress President of Manipur, Megha Chandra, had said that it was not only the BJP that was getting affected by the pre-poll violence, but also the Congress party and the NPP parties. What Mubashir had stated was there are a lot of parties, there are a lot of candidates who have actually openly asked their voters and their supporters to go out full-fledged and spoil the other intending candidates' political rallies and campaigns and indulge in violence, which is a very strange thing to see. And then when Hornbill TV had asked Mubashir about the incident and whether extra security forces were deployed to check the situation, Mubashir had mentioned that there was already a very large, massive troop that was deployed in Manipur for the upcoming elections, and that the EC had no plans of actually rather maximizing or increasing the deployed forces. So that is still a grim situation, and the EC has luckily avoided all, or rather stopped or banned any political rallies. So I guess which is one of the reasons why in the past few days the pre-poll violence incidents has not happened to a maximum. But yes, there have been a spate of incidents that have really worked up all the supporters in Manipur, and this time in Manipur the pre-poll violence situation is actually getting out of hand.
Okay, Akivito, what do you think are the factors that will affect during the election, like education or unemployment?
So I think one of the major reasons that BJP is actually depending on is the development projects and also healthcare. I mean, like at this point of time with the COVID pandemic rampant and still very active, and with the new Omicron cases really hampering the growth, there have been strict impositions of lockdown and several other factors to avoid the spread. Well, I think healthcare and development projects would be one of the most important factors, and also employment. If you look at it, it will be one of those factors that each party contesting in the Manipur Assembly polls will want to put their banks on and actually move ahead with the elections, because at the moment I think the youth and the public of Manipur really want to see that change. We have seen some changes after 2017 BJP government was formed. According to what Prime Minister Narendra Modi had put it in his address in Manipur was always a locked up state, but because the BJP had come, it's now a free state, and now there are no more buns. It was a bun state, that is what he stated, and now with the BJP in power, the state was no more like that. So I think those are some of the major factors that will actually help the BJP in their campaign against, in setting up a government again in 2022.
Yes, Esther, getting back to you, in the past few months, Manipur state has witnessed a lot of, central dignitaries visiting the state, like, Sambit Patra and also Prime Minister Narendra Modi and also JP Nadda, the president of the BJP. So do you think them visiting, the state can help the people get, fall for the votes, or also do you think that BJP can come back to power? Can this be a supporting factor for them?
Yes, definitely. This is Right. It is definitely a very big supporting factor to have the Prime Minister of a country come and subtle campaign in the pretext of inaugurating development projects worth 4,800 crore rupees. And this is definitely very subtly done, but it's definitely a major campaign boost to the BJP to have all these central dignitaries of the BJP come and also show the people that they are there for development, to build the infrastructure and to give back to the people. But yes, this is definitely a campaign boost and then definitely a boost to the BJP to definitely garner votes. And yes, I should say very much yes, this is really going to help the BJP win, probably according to a lot of surveys as well, Lishini. It's a very close, according to a lot of surveys, it's going to be very close. But yes, yet again, the BJP has proven in these surveys that they are bound to win the elections.
Okay, Esther, if like 2 to 3 percentage of voters come to BJP, what can be the outcome for this election?
If the 2 to 3, if voters actually leave the candidates leave the Congress party, or the percentage goes down, then there will be a huge leap for the BJP, because Congress, even though they have more seats in the assembly and BJP has lesser, their percentages are lower and they are in the negative. So yes, if any candidates also they leave the Congress for the BJP, yes, that's matter of fact, I mean, that's very obvious that they will definitely, it'll be a huge margin of win for them.
Yes, getting back to you, Akivito, do you think that the clashes between the militants and also the insurgents, can hamper the elections? Do you think so? Like in the month of November, we have seen the ambush of Viplav Tripathi. So such incidents, do you think that it can hamper the elections?
All right, Lishni, talking about the Biplab Deep, which was a tragic incident, it happened in the month of November, and a colonel, Biplab Tripathi, his wife and his 2 sons were shot dead in an ambush. And after the ambush, it was the PLA and the Manipur's Naga People's Front that actually took responsibility for those killings. Well, if you look back at history, and if history has taught us anything about regarding the polls that happens in Manipur, well, the insurgents and militants have played a major role, especially if you look at the hill areas. My colleague Esther was just mentioning to you that we've got about 20 seats in the hill areas, and that is where you see there is a maximum rise of militancy and insurgency in those areas. So they will definitely play a part. Well, talking about insurgents and all, if you look at it, the regional parties and their influence seems to be waning off. As you can see that a lot of NPF legislators, or rather party workers of the Naga People's Front that also had 4 seats in the previous elections, have left, getting back to the point, have left the NPF and have joined the BJP party. This is only going to strengthen the BJP's foothold into the hills, because normally the NPF and all always definitely win from the hilly areas, but now that even in the hilly areas, it is the BJP that is actually spreading its influence. So that is going to be a very big factor as to whether the insurgents would actually want to help the mainstream national party, which is the Bharatiya Janata Party, actually win. But it is also got a lot to do with all the armed forces and all those AFSPA and rule, which will play a major part in whether the insurgents would want any national party to be winning the assembly election. So this is going to be, the insurgents, yes, do have a very strong role to play in the results of whatever happens in the 2022 assembly elections.
Yes, Akivito, who do you think is going to fight for the CM fees? Is it going to be CM Biren Singh, or do you think that the BJP party is going to fight the elections without a CM?
At the moment, there has been no official confirmation as to who the Chief Minister face would be for the Manipur Assembly elections. But also, if you look at it, it was Biren Singh in 2017 who just stood up and took the post as Chief Minister and has completed 5 years of his tenure successfully. So if the BJP has learned anything, it's more to do with about trying to move forward with the same party face, but they will have some major changes in the ministerial berths. If you look at Manipur, I think ex-Chief Minister Ibobi Singh would still be the Congress candidate to be the Chief Minister. NPP, Konrad Sangma's party, the chief of NPP has not declared the chief ministerial phase as of now. I think the main reason for this would be that there is already a pre-existing coalition between these parties, and so I think none of them would actually want to break such ties at such an important time. There's just about Manipur goes into polls on the 27th of Feb, and the second phase is on 3rd of March. So at this point of time, I think these parties are more concerned about actually holding political rallies and getting support from the people rather than wanting to put a chief ministerial phase. But most probably, if it's the BJP that gets into power again, I think there would be no other person apart from CM Biren Singh who would actually take back the post as the chief minister.
Getting back to you, Esther. Esther, the same question to you. What do you think about it? Like, do you think that, who is going to fight for the CM phase? Is it going to be like N. Biren Singh again?
Yes, as far as we know, and according to a lot of surveys that have been done, and these are legit surveys that have been done, N. Biren Singh looks like he's coming back. And like I said earlier, he seems to have a very good reach to the people. And, we also have seen it that every day he's up and about doing a lot of work around Manipur and inaugurating various projects. And he's just been really busy the past few months, and he is getting a lot of good rep with a lot of the voters. And yes, right now as well, with the COVID situation in hand, maybe it is not as much as how it was in 2017, the campaigning, but even though it is a little setback for the elections, that not much can be done when it comes to campaigning and going the full, way, but then he seems to be still getting a lot of good response from the people.
Yes, Esther, like one seat is there for this, Lok Jan Shakti party. So is it going to contest for the BJP, or is it going to contest alone?
This party also, it had one seat the last previous election, but they did have more than 4 lakh voters, and that's actually a huge number compared when it comes to 19 lakh and this many parties are there. So it does have a very good chance also again of joining forces. Let's say, this time if they want to be also known as one big huge party in this northeast region, then I suppose it would be a good time for them to also join the BJP collision with them, because they do have a huge number of voters also that actually supported them in the last elections.
Okay, getting back to you, Aki, what are some of the developments that BJP can clinch on for the election campaign?
All right, talking about the state of Manipur, I think Chief Minister Biren Singh has been one of the busiest chief ministers amongst the northeast states. There have been a spate of developments, and also the influence of the BJP in the center has brought in about a lot of changes in the state of Manipur. Well, if you look at some of the major things, if you look at those hills in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, it's now called the Manipur Hills, which during independence, when Manipur fighters were exiled in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, so that is in dedication of their contribution towards the fight for freedom. Well, apart from that, I think the major development plan that the BJP can actually cling on to is the Jirbam-Agartala Railway Express that has just started. Chief Minister N. Biren Singh, in the inauguration ceremony of the Jirbam and Agartala Express, Jan Shatabdi Express, had said that after 400 years in the state of Manipur, railways had finally reached there. Well, so I think that is going to be one major development that the BJP can actually be proud of, because with this railway services, it has minimized the travel time between Agartala and Jirbam from 6 hours. Before, it used to take about 2 to 3 days to actually travel from these two distances. But now with the Jan Shatabdi Express, Jirbam-Agartala, I think that distance has been cut down, and now the time taken is just about 6 hours. And also there were some state development projects that the Chief Minister Manipur had started, especially when the pandemic had just hit the world. It was Chief Minister N. Biren Singh's initiative to start a van that would go vaccinate people all around the hills. And also he had also started the Go to the Hills program, in which the headquarters of the center, or rather the state, would shift to each district in Manipur. There are 16 districts in Manipur, so the headquarter for each month would be shifted to. So these are some of the development programs, or rather the development that has taken place, and also the security and the amount of bans and lockdowns that used to take place in Manipur before, that has decreased incredibly. And I mean, like, I think those are some of the few points that the BJP can actually carry on with them and actually attract voters, that if they come to power again for the next 5 years, more development plans would come out and Manipur would get a fresh face as to what the state was like. I mean, back then in the 2000s, Manipur was known for its bans, and there were total shutdowns, and there were a lot of militancy and insurgency. There were a lot of civilians being killed because of the fight between the army and the insurgents. But in the past 5 years, these incidents have reduced very dramatically, and I think those are some of the points that the BJP can actually rely on during their election campaign.
Okay, Akivito, getting to the last question, do you think the face of PM Modi can actually help BJP win the elections in Manipur?
All right, coming to the Prime Minister's image, I think the Prime Minister's image is right now very glorified, and the fact that the Prime Minister has been able to do a lot of things on his own and having that majority thing, I think the influence on the voters will be very huge and drastic. And the fact that the election campaign, the EC has actually stopped the election campaign till January 15 during the first press conference, but now in the updated version of the press conference, they've said that 22nd, till the Jan of 22nd, there will be no political rallies, but they have made some provisions in which 300 people or less could actually attend party functions, and then if there was a hall, then 50% capacity. So I think this would make a big difference. And since Manipur is going into polls on 27th, I think the Prime Minister will visit the state once more, just as an added campaign, or rather to boost the voters in the last minute, and I think that will play a major difference. I mean, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the last time he had come, he praised the people of Manipur for the achievement that they've made and for all the work that they've done. He's really stressing on the Manipur culture, its literature works, and also he's giving a stress on these points that can actually gain popularity amongst these voters, and also because of his face, vote for the BJP. So I think the Prime Minister will do.
Okay, thank you so much. Getting again back to Esther. Esther, with the same question, do you think that the face of the PM can help Bharatiya Janata Party win the elections in Manipur?
Sorry, Lishini, you're not audible.
Yes, Esther, do you think that the face of the PM can help the Bharatiya Janata Party win in the Manipur elections? What is your opinion on that?
Yes, definitely the face of Narendra Modi, our Prime Minister, will help the Manipur elections immensely, and him actually coming to the state in the last this month and earlier this month has really boosted the feeling of the people and the voters. So yes, the face of a Prime Minister will definitely boost votes for the BJP in favor of them.
Okay, thank you so much, Akivito and Esther, for joining me and speaking on the Manipur polls 2022 and also about the various speculations that are going around. Thank you so much.